On today's episode, we are looking at the finances of a married couple. They have 3 kids aged 5, 3, and 2 months. The husband is 38 years old and is self-employed. The wife is 28 years old and is a stay-at-home mom. They say they make a lot of money, but they don't know how to manage it. They've made a lot of mistakes, gotten into a lot of debt, and now they want to start working towards financial freedom. If you're new here, hi, welcome. My name is Itumeleng. I'm a qualified management accountant. And on this channel, I help ordinary people like you learn how to start saving money, get out of debt, invest, and ultimately build wealth. If that is something you're interested in, please do subscribe and become a part of our growing rich family. Now let us get into the finances of our couple, starting with their income. Like I said, the husband is self-employed. He is a software engineer and works as an independent contractor. And the wife is a stay-at-home mom. They decided that the wife should not work. She should just stay home, take care of the kids. And the husband actually makes, a nice amount of money to be able to take care of both of them. So the husband's monthly income is 215,000 rands. That's huge, right? That is a lot of money. That is why they say we do earn a decent amount of money, a huge amount of money, but we just don't know how to manage it. However, this huge amount of money does not belong to them, all of it. A big chunk of this belongs to, Caesar, SARS. So our brother, the husband, is not paying SARS. He just gets this 215,000, from the company as an independent contractor. It goes into his business account and there's no tax planning, there's no tax deduction, nothing, and they just start spending from the business account. That is a dangerous game because SARS has not gone to them yet. They think, no, we have a lot of money. It is a lot of money. Even after taking account of the tax, it will still be a lot of money. But what we are looking at here is wrong, is an incorrect view of their finances, of their income. We need to, going forward, we need to start having a good tax planning for our business. Otherwise, even though SARS has not gone to them yet, SARS sees everything. Just because they are not saying anything doesn't mean they don't know. And who knows, they are watching today. You see it, SARS, you see? Here it is. They are not paying tax on this 215,000. But we have to fix that, We have to start by getting our tax affairs in order. Every single month you get 215,000. Put aside at least 30% of this money for SARS, and then you can make your provisional tax payment. However, we need to start by taking account of all the income that we've been getting that we have not been paying tax on. And then we need to voluntarily go to SARS and tell them, we are handing ourselves over, here we are. That way you are going to also avoid, heavy penalties. They're going to think you're a decent member of society, you feel bad, you're a good person. That could help. But if SARS comes knocking, for this income, the amount of tax that they must be behind on, I don't want to know. Getting the business taxes sorted is going to be a very important step towards the financial freedom they speak about, because now we are just going to be planning on an income that is not completely ours. Another thing, we cannot continue to operate from a business account. The finances of the business and our finances should be kept separate. It also helps with our tax planning so that you can be able to see which are the business expenses that you're going to be able to deduct from your taxable income. So all those tax matters, getting separate accounts, bookkeepings. A good friend of mine is very passionate about that. She is an accountant and she helps small businesses just like our brother here get their taxes in order, get their finances in order. I'm going to put a pamphlet for her business here. You can screenshot it. And if you are in a similar situation, or if you are a small business owner, or if you just want help with your taxes in general, please contact her. She's going to help you guys. She also helps me a lot with my own taxes, if I'm being honest. Even with our lovely couple, I referred them to her, and she should be able to get them started on getting their business affairs in order. So 215,000, not all of it is ours. Take away at least 30%, like I said, that's around 60,000 of this. Put that away for provisional tax, put it in a savings account. It can be gaining interest in the meantime before you have to pay it. And then we cannot have the business live from hand to mouth. We need a little bit of cash to remain for the business. The business needs to constantly have a positive cash flow so that in case of emergencies, businesses also need an emergency fund. In case of emergencies, like I said, he's a software engineer. If he needs to upgrade a system, if he needs to buy a new computer, all those things, there's always something needed for any business. Then you can tap into the business funds. But when you just get the 215,000 and you don't even pay tax and you don't even leave anything in the bank for the business, no, then this business is not sustainable. Then in case of a small emergency, the business will shut down, and it doesn't have to be like that, especially for such a nice income. Now let us look at their savings and investments as well as their debt balances. Savings and investments, they have major projects, 115,000. I said, what is major projects? They said that this is for a village house. They want to build a village retirement home. They've already bought land, so they just want to start with the foundation and start building. This will be their retirement home. They are currently in the city, and it's not anytime soon. They are currently still young, and retirement is a bit far for them, but they just want to get started on that. And another thing that is included in the major projects is their dream wedding. They got married traditionally, everything was paid, all the traditional things were done. Now they just want to have their dream white wedding. So that is what constitutes the 115,000. I said, okay, we cannot have this 115,000 be a combination of the building fund as well as the wedding fund. Another thing you see there's no emergency fund. The business does not have an emergency fund. They don't have an emergency fund as individuals, but they have a wedding fund. They have a retirement home fund. We've already established that the retirement house is not that urgent, like it's for like the next 20 plus years is when they expect to start living in this retirement house. So the retirement house is not that urgent. Not that it's not important. It's obviously important to them. It's something that we can do at a very low pace without a lot of pressure. Now tell me about the wedding. They said, well, the wedding is urgent. We want to have the wedding by the end of the year. Okay, then how much do you think the wedding is going to cost? They said at least 500,000 rands. So since the wedding is going to cost, a significant amount of money, and the house building is not that urgent, what I would suggest is let's start by taking some money from this wedding fund and have an emergency fund. You can even split it in half. Let 50,000 be your starter emergency fund, and then 65,000 is going to be your starter waiting fund, and we continue to build both funds from there month on month. Another thing, there are no TFSAs for our couple here, and they have 3 kids, but they do have a kids education fund at a balance of 12,400 rands. This 12,400 rands is for 3 kids. You guys already know how it goes. It's those funds that people open in preparation for the consultation so that it's not 0-0. We like it. We love to see it, no matter what the motivation was. It's good that they got started on the kids' education. Going forward, it would be nice to also get started a little bit on the kids' TFSAs, but they are also still very young, so they have a lot of time to play catch up. For now, if we can start building our emergency fund from the 50,000 rands, and then we start building the wedding fund as well, the retirement house will have to take a back seat for now, maybe just until after the wedding. What can be done now for the retirement house is, on a good month, once in a while, when they do have extra money, they can just, put that towards the retirement house. But the finances need to be structured and committed according to the agency of the fund, and the house building is not that urgent for now. But like I said, we will put a little bit slowly, and once the wedding is done, they'll have a lot left over money that they can commit towards that. In total, their savings and investments are 127,400 rands. It's good they got started. It looks like they got started yesterday, based on their income, but it's good. It's a good start is all I will say. Now let us look at their debt balances. Car 1, 732,000. Car 2, 348,900 rands. Okay, we still have both cars on credit. They said yes. Car 1, you'll see car 1, the balance is high. That's because the wife wanted a good mommy car. Okay, and then car 2 is for the husband. This thing of mommy cars, we'll talk about it some other time, because with our couple here, a lot is going on, and if I start talking about the mommy cars, I won't finish. Home loan 1,765,000. Capitec credit card 57,480 rands. Clothing account 7,240 rands. iPhone 29,000. In total, their debt balance is 2,939,620 rands. Okay, that's not a small debt. A lot of it is coming from the home loan and the mommy car. Capitec credit card, clothing account, iPhone. I don't see why we are entertaining things like that. I don't see why we would need to have a pandemic, for the income that we get. iPhone, these are the people that get that big income that does not pay SARS. So you are not paying SARS, you can pay for an iPhone cash, But when I said that, the husband said, okay, if I tell you like a little bit more about us and the loans, I think you would be a bit more proud of us. I said, okay, tell me. He said, okay, I'm just going to start by being very honest. When I first came across your channel and I started watching you, I didn't like you. I said, this lady is very harsh and she's very judgmental. Who does she think she is? I didn't like you. But I kept watching you. I said, okay. And then continue. I want to hear this story. He said, and then one day I was alone. And then I thought, man, we get that much money, but we have a lot of debt. And we had a lot more in our credit card. And we had a personal loan balance of 400,000 rands. After looking at my finances, I said, no wonder that lady is so harsh. People like me really deserve to be shouted at, because why do I have so much money, but I'm also in so much debt? Then I went to my wife and I said, you know what? That rude lady on YouTube might be onto something. We need to start paying off our personal loan. And ma'am, we paid off the personal loan in 6 months. It was a balance of 400,000 rands. After we paid that off, we said, now we are ready to meet her. She's not going to be that mad. Okay, that's a good thing. Congratulations. That's a nice job. Well done on paying off 400,000 rands on your personal loan. However, you should not have told me. You should not have told me, because whatever you say here can and will be used against you in the court of law. What is the reason you were in a 400,000 rand personal loan to begin with? They said, you see, ma'am, we were young and, we just got into a lot of debt. We were buying things we didn't need. It was also this thing of us, our income is a lot. The way our income is a lot kind of made us think that, we can get into anything and quickly get out of anything. Okay, I mean, to be fair, you did get out of that. Now, let the same spirit apply to this iPhone, right? Credit card, clothing account, iPhone, they all amount to around 93,000 rands. We're going to find a way to settle them and just be left with the mommy car and the husband's car, as well as the home loan. Those we can work on reducing later, but Capitec credit card, clothing account, iPhone, there's no reason those should be there, and they're really not that much. We should be able to clear them off and just have car debt and as well as home loan. Now let us look at their monthly expenses. Mortgage 19,600 rands, rates and taxes 3,200 rands, water 1,500 rands, electricity 1,550 rands, groceries 7,000 rands. A little high, but it's okay. Car 1, the mommy car, 12,200 rands. Car 2 for the husband, 7,200 rands. Car insurance 1, 2,600 rands. I said, oh, that's a little high. They said, the husband said, no, it was actually 3,000 rands. It was higher than this. After watching one of your videos where you were giving us tips on how to reduce our insurance premiums, I called them and I told them I got a better premium somewhere else. So if you don't reduce it, I'm going to go with them. And you know what, ma'am? They reduced it on the spot. You are very good. I don't know why I didn't like you. Okay. For someone that didn't like me, you were watching a lot of my stuff, following me around everywhere, like a monitoring spirit. But I'm glad I could help. Car insurance 2, 1,665. Tracker, 660 rands. Fuel for car 1, 3,500 rands. This is fuel for the husband's car. They say the wife gets an allowance and from there she fuels her own car. Life cover for the husband, 1,300 rands. I said, okay, why does the wife not have life cover? The husband said, ma'am, that's because I'm the sole provider. So if anything happened to me, the income flow would stop and they would need to get income from somewhere else. That is why I have the life insurance. Why would my wife need life cover when she does not contribute anything financially? She does not have any financial responsibilities. And, I make a lot of money, so I don't really need life cover money or anything. If she died, I'd be able to just continue making money. Hey, you, a whole you that owes SARS 100 million cash. It cannot be you. Even if that was the case, you are very rich, you don't need the money. The wife has her family, her side of the family, she has nieces and nephews and uncles that she helps from time to time. She does not have any siblings and she does not have parents. Both her parents passed away. But she still has people that rely on her, people that she helps from time to time. Those can be her beneficiaries. Her kids can be her beneficiaries, because her kids are still young and they're not getting a say in saying, Mama, you don't need a life cover for us because our dad is going to take care of us. So the wife does need a life cover herself as well, for her kids, for other people that she helps, for other people that don't owe SARS, right? Funeral cover, 700 rands. As I went through their finances with them, I saw that they also don't have medical aid. The husband answered that again and said, we have a lot of money, so we just pay out of pocket. Mr. Rich, please pay, please. Please, let's start getting medical aid, even if it's entry level, even if it's, the most basic cover, just anything, a little bit, because, God forbid one day SARS comes knocking and they take everything, and then now you are unable to pay out of pocket. Anyway, you were paying things out of pocket with SARS money. We are not going back there. Preschool, 5,300 rands. This is for the 5-year-old. The 3-year-old and the 2-month-old are staying home with the helper and the mom. So the 3-year-old will also be going to preschool soon. They say they want the 3-year-old to start school next year when she turns 4. So that is also going to contribute to the school fees money there. Something to consider, something to plan for as well. Baby supplies for the 2-month-old is 3,000. Helper, 4,000. No, justice for the help. Justice for the helper. We are rich. We pay out of pocket. We have a lot of money. We don't need life cover. Let's pay the helper a little bit more than 4,000 because she's helping around the house. She cooks, cleans, and she takes care of 3 kids. Yes, the wife stays home, but a lot of it falls on the helper. And for people that are self-proclaimed rich, no, we can do better, start working on paying the helper a little bit more, and then, get her annual increases, a December bonus here and there. Let your richness show in the way that you treat your helper. Education savings, 6,200 rands. Dining out, 2,000. Nephew college allowance. This is the husband's nephew. He gives him a monthly allowance while he's in college of 1,300 rands. That's really nice. Capitec credit card, 3,400 rands. Bank charges, 1,200 rands. Clothing account, 1,000 rands. Wi-Fi, 580. iPhone, 1,500 rands. Garden, 700 rands. DSTV, 500 rands. Fidelity subscription, 470 rands. iCloud, 200 rands. Netflix, 180 rands. YouTube Premium, 140 rands. ChatGPT, 450 rands. Lovable AI, 980 rands. The husband says he uses a lot of AI and ChatGPT in his work, so hence those subscriptions. Husband's mom, 1,000 rands. Wife allowance, 15,000 rands. This is the allowance that the wife gets, that she buys her own petrol with, and then she also helps out at home. She helps out her uncle. Her uncle is the person that raised her when her parents died, so that is her parent figure. She's currently renovating her uncle's house, so some of this allowance goes towards that, and then petrol, and just some of her own personal things, her needs and wants that are separate from her husband, that she doesn't want to ask her husband money from. She can be able to use her allowance since she's a stay-at-home mom. She does not have a job. Her husband makes sure that she does not lack. And I like that. I want that. I want to sit at home too and get an allowance. It's very nice to be passenger princess at home. Things are paid for, 215,000 is getting in. It's not even paying SARS. And, you're able to get this allowance. Your husband is taking care of, the kids, everything. Your mommy car is, getting paid. Insurance, everything is covered. It's a beautiful life, but it's not sustainable. It's not safe, right? It's very risky, especially because the husband, is self-employed. He runs his company alone, and the wife does have a degree, what I advised them to do is try to involve the wife on the husband's business a little bit. Let her get up to speed, even if she does not do the whole software developing, software management things that the husband does. You need to at least know the basics. Where does he keep his files? If he was unable to work for a week, who do you contact? When you go on LinkedIn and you look for someone that can replace him for that time, because when you are an independent contractor, you cannot submit a sick note. If you are off for 2 weeks because something is happening, you cannot talk, you are sick or something, we have to replace you. They're going to find someone else to continue with your job, and they're going to pay that person, and you've lost income for those 2 weeks, for those 2 months. So the wife needs to be in a position where if the husband is unable to work, if the husband is unable to perform his duties, his contractual duties, that you know first of all who to call to let them know that, oh, he cannot come today, but we are going to bring a replacement for 3 weeks. Then it's business as usual. Just know the basic things about how he runs the business, right? How does he submit invoices? Who does he submit invoices to? What is the turnaround time on invoices? It's not nice. It's not as cute as being a stay-at-home mom and just getting an allowance, but it's what's needed to be done, because if he's unable to work, if something happens to him, if the worst happens, the wife needs to be in a position where she can continue operating this business. She does not even necessarily need to learn the skill. You just need to know who to call, where to go, what needs to be done, and you get someone to do it. And the company continues, the kids continue to be provided for, because we are talking about 3 kids here and a mother that relies heavily on the husband to just get things done. And the husband is really proud of that. He loves that. He loves that he takes care of his wife. He does not even want the wife to work. For him, he says, you've done this great labor of giving me kids. I don't want you to struggle. I don't want you to suffer. She does not have to struggle. She doesn't need to suffer like the rest of us are suffering. I suffer every day, right? So she does not need to, suffer. The husband does not want his wife to suffer, but she needs to be informed, not knowing what's happening, not knowing how the lights are being paid, who do we call, how do we run this business is not safe. It cannot be. So I raised that. I don't think the husband likes it, but the wife got it. And she just needs to speak to him, show him that this does not mean that you're no longer the great provider that you are. It just means that, we have a succession plan. We have, our risk assessment and risk mitigation in order. And another thing that we can do when we continue with our tax planning is the wife can be the employee of the business. She can be registered as our administrator, and that will also help reduce our tax liability, because then the salary can come from the business and we can deduct it. And the wife was even saying that 15,000 is not enough. She's unable to do a lot of the things that she wants. So once she starts being the administrator and you really help, knowing a little bit about the business is going to help your husband earn more in the long run, because you'll be able to take off the load of him, like, the small tasks, the admin, you'll take care of that so that he can really just focus on the main job. And, if that happens, then you can negotiate your salary. You won't just be a wife now. You'll be a rightful employee that has rights, according to labor law. So that is what I think about the wife allowance. And then now major projects, 100,000 rand. You can see the major projects balance there on the savings and investments was 115,000, I think. And they saying they contribute 100,000 monthly. That's also because they just started, and they say that is because they were conquering their personal loan. So that is good. We welcome that. However, we now know that we don't have 215,000 income. About 100,000 of that income is going to be just cash flow for the business, making sure we are on a positive cash flow for the business. That's an emergency fund for the business. And the other part of that will be for provisional tax savings. So they don't have 215,000. At best, they have 115,000, but a lot of their expenses are structured like they earn 215,000. And we will have to start there. We will have to start with knowing that we don't have 215,000, and we give to SARS what belongs to SARS. We give to the business what belongs to the business, and we pay ourselves salaries from the business, right? Now, the major projects going forward, what we can do, remember the small debts, the credit card, the clothing account, and the iPhone were about 93,000. We can take the major projects money just this month, right? You know, I know SARS is watching. SARS, please, for 1 month only, I promise we are going to pay you back every penny that we owe you, because it's not like you'll give us a choice, right? So this 100,000 rents just for this month, we can use it to settle those 3 debts. Then the amount that was going towards the credit card, the clothing account, and the iPhone, that's about 5,900 rents. Going forward, that can now start going towards SARS, the provisional tax savings, and also depending on how our arrangement to pay outstanding taxes works, that 5,900 rents would go a long way. Then we really sit down, we start from scratch. You know, everything will need to be reevaluated here. The wedding will also need to be reevaluated, because we were under the impression that we have this 100,000 rands that can pay for the wedding, that can also build us our village retirement home. A lot of things are going to have to change. Their first assignment is to sit down and start working on their income of 115,000 or so. I know that's too much on the safe side, but that's also because, you know, they owe SARS a lot of money. Then we have to make it work with that. You know, a lot of things will have to change. Then based on that, now can we start building our financial freedom? Because currently it's not looking good. It's much worse than it looks. You know, I know when you look at their finances, you know, at face value, it looks like, oh, they are not bad, right? But, you know, the elephant in the room, the SARS in the room, you know, they're having the income that you've been planning on for about 5 years. They say they've had this income for about 5 years, and they've been planning on this 215,000 for 5 years. That's now you'll have to restructure. The mommy car might have to go, because she's a stay-at-home mom. She doesn't go around that much. She might need to downgrade that, but again, that's up to them. I gave them the assignment to go and see, what do we have to downgrade, or are we just going to continue acting like SARS does not exist, which, you know, is a terrible game to play. And, you know, SARS sees everything. I'm sure they are watching this video, so it's too late now. They are going to come back. We are going to see them again soon to see how is it going with the tax planning and the tax debt, and what have they decided about their normal lifestyle that they are used to, their normal expenses. How are they going to restructure that? You know, there are 2 heads. They're going to put the 2 heads together, and, you know, the wife might even need to get a job, you know, because then this 15,000 that was going to her can be put to other expenses, can really help balance out the expenses. I don't know if the husband would allow that, but all that we will find out on part 2 very soon, I promise. So that is our lovely couple here. I know you guys like to quote me, say, this is our lovely couple here. This is our lovely couple here. Please let me know, what are your thoughts? Do you also owe SARS 7 million rands? I want to know about your SARS story. What is the reason you are not paying your taxes? What do you think can be the easiest solution here for our couple? Where should they start, while they are restructuring their finances? What is an area that you saw that you thought they could easily cut back on so that they can, readjust their lifestyle to this new income? Their new income is actually now half what they thought their income was. They came here thinking we are going to be building wealth. We have 100,000 rands to play with, but we now just know that we have 100,000 rands to give to SARS and downgrade a lot of the lifestyle that they know. So I hope you found value in this episode. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Like this video if you found it helpful. I will see you guys in the next video. Until then, I hope you have a rich day.